When a dying billionaire spoke her name for the first time, Destiny froze because no one had ever said it like that, like she mattered. Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. The halls of Whitmore Estate stretched like a museum, polished marble, gold accents, dustless chandeliers. Everything whispered money, power, distance, and through those echoing halls moved Destiny James, invisible in her black and white uniform, her hair pulled into a tight, neat bun, her back straight from years of learning how not to be noticed. She dusted the same grand piano every morning, though no one had played it in years. She brewed his tea just how he liked it, Darjeeling, steeped for exactly 5 minutes. She walked with silent steps, trained to take up less space than her mop and bucket. She was 33. She looked older when she didn't smile, but she rarely did. Her life was routine, and that was how she liked it. No questions, no noise, no memories, until the day he said her name, Destiny. She froze, her hand tightening on the brass doorknob to the solarium. Edward Whitmore sat in the same recliner he always did, legs wrapped in a cashmere blanket, oxygen tube against his nose, a worn leather journal resting on his lap. His once commanding frame had shrunk beneath his silk robe, but his eyes, those grey eyes, still pinned her like a nail to a wall. "No one's ever said that name in this house," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, voice low, raspy. "That was wrong of me." Destiny hesitated. She was trained to respond only when prompted, never to speak freely, never to ask why. But then he said it again, softer this time. "Destiny, would you sit with me? Just for a minute." She stared. No one had asked her to be with them, not since. Her chest tightened. Still, she nodded, slow, unsure, and stepped inside, unsure of what line had just been crossed. Have you ever been seen by someone you least expected, or been overlooked for far too long? Tell us in the comments. Your moment matters. Destiny sat on the edge of the armchair, unsure of where to put her hands. They rested awkwardly in her lap, fingers twining and untwining, like they were searching for a prayer. Edward didn't look at her. He stared out the tall solarium window, where golden afternoon light made dust motes dance like spirits. His voice broke the silence. "I'm dying, you know." "I know, sir," she said quietly. He chuckled, dry, bitter. "Of course you do. You see everything." A silence settled between them. It wasn't heavy, not yet. It was the kind of silence that creaked with something waiting underneath. Then he turned toward her, and in that moment she saw something strange in his eyes. Not power, not coldness, just fear. "I don't want a nurse," he said. "I don't want another lawyer. I've had 10 of each." He reached slowly for the leather journal beside him and opened it. "I want someone to help me finish something before I go." Destiny's brow furrowed. "Me?" He nodded. "I have one wish left, one person I need to speak to, but I can't do it alone. My hands are too weak, my heart even weaker." Her throat felt tight. "Why me?" He held her gaze. "Because you're the only one who looks me in the eye and doesn't flinch." Destiny blinked fast, like something inside her had been touched without permission. She looked down. "What is it you want?" He pushed the journal across the table to her. "Help me write a letter to the woman I should have loved. If you had one last chance to speak to someone you lost, would you take it? Would you know what to say? Share your thoughts in the comments." The next morning, Destiny stood in front of the solarium door with the journal in her hands. She hadn't opened it yet. She didn't know why. Maybe because this wasn't in her job description. Maybe because reading love letters written by a dying man felt too intimate. Maybe because part of her was afraid of being seen, not just by him, but by the memories she'd buried deep. She knocked lightly. "Come in," Edward called, weaker today. He sat wrapped in a blanket, his hands trembling slightly as he sipped his tea. When she entered, he glanced at her empty hands. "You didn't read it." She set the journal down on the table. "I wasn't sure it was meant for me. You agreed to help, he said, voice sharper now. If that's changed, it hasn't. She clenched her jaw. I just don't understand why someone like you would ask someone like me to do this. His eyes narrowed. Someone like you. She regretted the words the second they left her mouth. You think I'm asking out of pity? He asked, almost snarling. I think you're asking out of desperation, she said quietly, and I think I might be the only one desperate enough to say yes. A beat passed between them. Then, unexpectedly, Edward laughed. Not bitterly, not cruelly, but real. Maybe that's exactly what I need, he said, sighing. Two desperate souls clinging to one last story. Destiny sat down, slower this time. She opened the journal. A photo slipped out. It was old, black and white. A woman, graceful, dark-skinned, eyes like honey. A jazz club in the background. The caption read, Isabel, 1967, the one that slipped through my fingers. Have you ever let someone slip through your fingers, only to regret it too late? Or did life give you a second chance? Tell us below. Your story might heal someone else. The fall storm rolled in like a slow-breathing animal, thunder purring low in the distance. Rain tapped against the estate windows in uneven rhythms. Destiny had just turned off the stove when she heard it. A thud. Not loud, but wrong. She dropped the tea towel and ran. Edward was collapsed at the foot of the stairs. His eyes were open, his breathing shallow. His skin was pale as the marble beneath him. Mr. Whitmore, she cried, dropping to her knees. He tried to speak, failed. Her hands trembled as she reached for his oxygen, checking the flow. You didn't wear it again. Why didn't you wear it? He grunted a half smile. Didn't want to look pathetic. You look dead, she snapped, tears rising. He chuckled, and it turned into a painful cough. The ambulance came, but Edward refused transport. I'm not dying in a hospital bed under fluorescent lights, he muttered. I'll die looking out my window. So he stayed, and so did she. That night, Destiny warmed soup she didn't know if he'd eat. She sat beside his bed, slowly feeding him each spoonful, wiping the corner of his mouth with a cloth like she was doing something sacred. He barely spoke. When he drifted off, she moved to the window seat, curled her legs beneath her, and stared at the rain. Then, in a voice barely a whisper, she began to hum, a lullaby, a melody her daughter used to fall asleep to in a noisy shelter. She didn't mean to sing it aloud, but it slipped from her chest like steam from a kettle. Edward stirred in bed, his eyes open, soft, wet. He whispered, that song feels like forgiveness. It was just after sunrise. Edward was still sleeping, shallow breaths steady against the rhythm of the oxygen machine. Destiny moved quietly through the study, searching for a clean blanket, when she noticed a wooden box on the shelf, unlocked, dusty. Curiosity nudged her fingers. Inside, aged letters, dozens, all handwritten, all addressed to the same name, Isabel Brown, Harlem, NY, Club Royale dressing room. Destiny pulled one out and opened it carefully. The paper crackled. Isabel, I saw you again last night, on that stage with your silver dress and that voice that made grown men cry. I almost walked backstage. I almost said it, that I loved you, but I didn't. Again, Destiny's chest tightened. She read another. I married someone else. My father insisted. I watched your records gather dust in a drawer. I tried to forget your laugh. It never worked. Her fingers trembled as she closed the box. If you had one last chance to speak to someone you lost, would you take it? Would you know what to say? Share your thoughts in the comments. Later that evening, Edward woke. She was sitting beside his bed, the box on the table between them. You loved her, Destiny said softly. He didn't deny it, just nodded, slow and tired. She was the only thing in my life I didn't buy, he whispered, and the only thing I couldn't keep. Destiny swallowed. Why didn't you send the letters? Because I was a coward in a suit, he said, and by the time I wasn't, it was too late. Silence. Then, slowly, Destiny spoke. I had a daughter once. Edward looked over at her. Really looked. I lost her to the system, she whispered. I lost myself trying to get her back. Their pain met like rain on glass, sliding together, but never needing to say much, just enough to finally be seen. The next afternoon, Edward asked to be wheeled out to the old porch. It was warmer than usual for October. The sky blushed pink as the sun dipped low. Leaves spun in lazy spirals from the tall trees. Destiny brought him a blanket, his tea, and without asking, wheeled over the old wooden swing she'd cleaned weeks ago but never seen anyone use. He looked at it like a memory he'd forgotten he owned. "Help me sit there," he said. She did. It creaked under his weight, groaning against time. She sat beside him, cautious at first, but then comfortable. He sipped his tea. "Peach?" She smiled. "Your favorite." He nodded, then tilted his head. "You remind me of her, you know." Destiny's heart skipped. "Isabel?" He shook his head. "No, you. The way you watch the world like it's trying to apologize. The way you listen, like the silence says more than people ever could." She looked away. "I'm not good at being seen," she admitted. He smiled. "Then we're two ghosts trying to feel something before we fade." A long pause. Then he said, "Do you think if I wrote her now she'd forgive me?" Destiny looked at the sky, the horizon bleeding color. "I think," she said, "some letters don't need to be sent to matter." A breeze passed, the swing creaked, and just before the sun disappeared, Edward reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. She held it, not out of duty, but because something inside her had started to warm. Not fire, but glow. Soft, real, dangerous. The morning was sharp with silence. Destiny had just folded Edward's linens when the front door slammed. Voices echoed through the mansion, cold, raised, male. She froze. Then he appeared in the solarium doorway, drenched in tailored arrogance and resentment. Graham Whitmore, Edward's estranged son. He looked Destiny up and down like she was a speck on polished glass. "She's the one," he scoffed. "This is what you've been doing while dying." "Graham," Edward warned, his voice dry and brittle. "Dad, do you have any idea how this looks? The maid? You changed your will. The lawyers called me." Destiny's breath caught. She hadn't known about any will. Edward closed his eyes, exhausted. "It's not about money, Graham. It's always about money." Graham snapped. "Except this time, you've decided to give it all to your new project. What is she? A redemption arc?" Destiny felt heat rise in her throat. "I'm not anything to you," she said quietly, before turning to Edward. "You should have told me. I didn't want to ruin it." Edward whispered, eyes glassy. "You already have," she said, and with that she walked out. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She just left. Past the piano she used to polish, past the swing that still smelled like autumn, down the steps of the grand estate, shoes tapping like punctuation marks against the marble. Edward tried to rise, but pain rooted him in place. Destiny. But she was gone. Graham stood behind him, arms folded. She was just the help. Edward turned to him, tears streaming. "No, son, she was the only one who helped me live." 3 days passed. Destiny didn't return. The estate was silent again. Not peaceful, hollow. Edward spent his days in the solarium, staring at the porch swing through the window. He hadn't asked for tea. He hadn't written. He barely spoke. Until the morning, Nurse Franklin came in and found a single envelope on the bedside table. "To Edward, from Destiny." Her handwriting was clean, strong, certain. "You asked me to help you write a letter to the woman you should have loved, but you did love her. You just never believed you were worthy. That's the part I understand too well. I didn't come to your house to be seen. I came to disappear, but you looked at me like I was whole again. That scared me more than anything. I'm sorry I left, but if you still want me to stay, really stay, you'll have to ask me. Not as your maid, but as Destiny." Edward sat with the letter on his lap for a long time. He stared at the ink like it was breathing. Then slowly, painfully, he called for Graham. "Find her," he rasped, "please." Graham, for once, said nothing. No resistance, just a solemn nod. Destiny was sitting on the steps of the small church down the road, where she used to clean the pews in exchange for prayer. When she looked up, she didn't expect to see Edward's son, holding out a folded piece of paper. She opened it. One line, "I choose you." When she turned around, Edward was there, pale, shaking, but standing. "I'll fall if you don't catch me," he whispered. She ran to him, and this time she didn't let go. Edward passed away 6 days later, just before dawn, with Destiny's hand resting in his. He didn't cry, he didn't tremble. He just whispered, "Stay," and she did, until his last breath left gently, like a page turning in the wind. In his will, he left behind no fortune for board members or executives. He left his journal to Graham, along with one request: learn to feel before it's too late. And to Destiny, he left the estate's guest house, full ownership of the porch and garden, and one letter sealed with wax. She opened it on the swing they'd once shared. Destiny, I spent most of my life collecting things, titles, homes, investments, respect, but none of it touched my soul like the sound of your laugh on that porch. You fulfilled my last desire, not by writing a letter for the past, but by giving me a reason to stop running from it. You were never just the help, you were the healing, and if there's something after this, I'll be looking for your lullaby. Love, Edward. 1 year later. The mansion stood quiet, closed, but on the edge of the property, where the roses now bloomed brighter than ever, a small cafe sat in place of the old carriage house. A wooden sign hung from a vine-covered arch: Whitmore's Porch, coffee, jazz, stories, second chances. Inside, Destiny moved with a new kind of grace, one that didn't try to disappear. She poured tea for an elderly couple. She sang quietly when the radio stopped working. She sat on the porch with strangers who needed silence more than words. And at the end of every shift, she walked outside and sat on the porch swing, humming the lullaby. Do you believe people can heal through love, even near the end? Did this story remind you of someone you lost, or someone you found? Share your story in the comments. It matters. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.